So I know that there's some anxiousness to ask some questions as in the crowd, which is great.
Oh, yeah.
Before we do that, I want to ask one last panel question, and we're going to turn it over to the crowd, and we're all going to have a civil conversation. So,
Well, it depends on the answer, but.
the last thing is, there may be some people in this room, although I hope I can say not, and highly doubtful, but I know that there are people in all communities, in the city and across the country, who feel like because of what's happening, either at the national level or even sometimes at the local level, here in Boston we see this as well, that there's no point in voting. There's no point in being involved. It doesn't matter if you go to the ballot box. It doesn't matter because it's not going to change anything. And I guess the question I would have for you all, as panelists from your respective positions, is what do you say to those people? Kate, I'll start with you.
Do you want to start? You want to have a chance to go first? Would you
Sure. I'd say vote. Just grit your teeth and vote for, vote for it anyway. Get involved. Stay involved. The worst thing, on either party is apathy. Is citizen apathy. When people don't care about the communities that they live in, when they don't, get involved in their coaching a team. I coach a team at the local school. Like I said, I have a young daughter, but I love coaching and I want to give back, to my community. I want to be a part of it. Get involved in your church, the charity the charity organizations that the churches and different community organizations, and this organization itself. Get involved. I mean, obviously, everybody in this room is probably going to vote, but the question is, how do we get out to people to participate in our democracy, our constitutional republic? And it's critical. It's not easy. I think what's high voter turnout is something, 35%? 35% of registered voters coming out, or people who are eligible to vote, that's high, 35%. And when there's people who are oppressed all over the world, who are literally fighting for their lives, for the privilege, or I should say for the right to vote and determine who governs them, I think it's just sad. Since the day I turned 18, I've voted in every election I've been able to vote in, and I hope everybody in this room continues to vote every election cycle from this election forward. How that's done, well, you know what? If I knew that, I'd be elected right now. But what I saw in the business meeting earlier, about 50 times, the word leadership was mentioned. And I'm not kidding, it was about 50 times. I think that's phenomenal. I think everything, they mentioned a leadership conference. I think that sounds like a great idea. You should sign up for it, learn all the techniques and skills you can to help organize your committees, get people involved, get out. And it takes hard work, and you got to be able to, I think for one thing, part of the university, you got to be able to take rejection. You got to be able to take somebody look you in the eye and go, I'm not interested. I'll talk to you. Don't bother me, because they're just focused on getting to the store, taking care of their child or their elderly parent or whatever it is, or just getting to work, or worried about getting a job. Whatever it is, they're just kind of focused on that. So maybe it's taking the time, investing the energy to get people thinking about how the laws that are passed affect our lives.
Ken, aside from reading more papers.
Yes, please read newspapers. No, it's a dying medium, but in terms of, I understand the frustration because both sides, Democrats and Republicans, are rife with hypocrisy. So it's frustrating to I think, for a lot of people to cast a vote. Democrats came out this week with a website called BeaconHillRepublicans.com. And it basically said, all these state reps and others who've gotten in trouble over this, that, the other thing. And obviously the Democrats here are saying that while they have, former Speaker of the House, Sal DeMacy, in jail, former State Senator Diane Wilkerson in jail. So it's like the neither side has the moral high ground. And as Jeff said, you got to kind of grit your teeth and to decide, okay, how am I going to work this and cast a vote. But you have to cast a vote, because otherwise, you're not going to get counted. you know, politicians pay attention to who votes. You know, they go over the voter rolls. You know, they know who shows up, and when you show up, they will take notice. You know, whether it's voting for the politician or voting for the person running against them. You know, they will always take note of that.
Sorry, I don't want to steal from anybody's time, but I just want to mention that as a former candidate, that's absolutely correct. If you're a registered voter and you've pulled a ballot or you showed up to the polls to vote, every candidate has access to that information, and you have power in that vote. They can pay attention to each and every one of us because we're voters, and that is key. If you are active in these types of organizations, community organizations, political organizations, even more so people pay attention to. So there is that aspect of it. It's very true.
Yeah, and so I understand the apathy. I understand the pull towards being apathetic, but I feel like you got to bite the bullet and you got to go in that voting booth, and you know, if it's a write-in, if it's blanking the ballot. Politician. I was talking to a congressman today who told me he pays attention to the blanks. You know, he matches who else was on the ballot with him and how many blanks he got.
Could you explain the blanks a little bit more, just in case people
if you go in there and you know, you basically just kind of you leave your ballot blank. You don't, or you, let's say you know, you vote for Elizabeth Warren, but you do not vote for your state senator or state rep. You know, just blank it. You know, they pay attention to that stuff because they view that as, okay, well, I might be in trouble in that area or whatever. So I feel it's important to vote. I had a government teacher in high school who actually threatened the class with bodily harm if they didn't register to vote. So I registered to vote at 18, and I voted for Democrats. I voted for Republicans, independents, whatever. You know, I think it's important to show up and vote.
So, as part of my work with the community health centers, we've been trying to register as many of our patients as possible to vote since June of this year. And apathy is rife at the community health center. So I hear on a regular basis, well, why should I care about voting? I don't want to register, you know, there's nobody I want to vote for, they're all bums, they should all be voted out, what's the point? And, you know, from my perspective of doing the political work and working on campaigns, especially on the state level, I've seen races won or lost by as little as one vote. So when you think your vote doesn't count and your voice doesn't matter, that's an example that I use lots of times. I've seen races won and lost on as few as one vote. And in addition, for folks who think that their vote doesn't matter and their voice doesn't count, why are candidates spending millions and millions of dollars and throwing money basically at you to be in your face 24/7 on the radio and on TV if your voice didn't matter? Why would they be throwing that kind of money at you if it didn't matter? So clearly, if folks are willing to invest all this money in public office to obtain public office, your voice and your vote is worth something. You know, and in Massachusetts, where we are facing these 3 different ballot initiatives, a lot of times where I can't get folks engaged or energetic about voting for a person, I can typically get them going into conversation about one of these 3 ballot questions, and folks will want to turn out about those because literally, in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, we're going to be voting on issues that are a matter of life and death. It's that simple. Question number 2 on life-ending drugs, and to some extent, question number 3 on medical marijuana. These are significant issues that could impact the health, quality of care, and end-of-life decisions for folks around the state. And what's more personal than our health care and our access to really how we want to control end-of-life issues. So typically, if there's not a candidate that really is striking the fancy of folks that I'm talking to, those issues will light some kind of a fire either for or against folks. So I've been using that to engage folks who are either intermittent voters or not registered, to engage them in the process. I think the other thing is a lot of times we've been hearing folks don't plan on voting because it's inconvenient. Because of their work schedule, they're going to be out of town, they might be a senior, someone with transportation issues. So we've been trying to get absentee ballots into the hands of those folks and really reducing barriers to them getting to the polls. Because what we've seen in the health centers is that typically the same barriers that folks face in trying to access health care are the same barriers that they're facing when they're trying to get to the polls. So we're trying to mitigate that, language issues, just the ability to even read the ballot, making sure folks know their rights, and breaking down those barriers that typically prevent folks from getting to the polls. And to that end, I will add, if anyone is not registered, or you need voter registration forms, or you're looking for information or something to take away with you tonight to kind of spread the good word and start conversations with your family, friends, neighbors, on your job, at your place of worship, I have that material and I'm happy to share it with you.